Hi, Church. Pastor Jeff here with another Trinity check-in. This is going to be a little bit of a different video today, and I'm going to be honest, I usually try to keep these at 6 minutes, and I don't think there's any hope for that today. But I hope it will be worth it for you and for me to get these things out of my own system. I do want to give a bit of a warning, though, about what I want to talk about today. I want to address the political situation in our country. Now, I'm not going to talk about politics directly. I'm not going to get political. There is very much a time and a place for that for all of us, but this isn't it. What I do want to do is talk about how we as people of faith hold everything that's going on in our world right now. I hope in a way that's comforting, but I also know that this is a very stressful time for many of you, and you just can't go there right now. So if this isn't the right moment, the right time for you to watch this video, please save it for later or don't watch it at all. But for those of you that would like a few words, I need to say them and get them off my own chest. And I made a list. That's why I'm pretty sure I'm going to go over 6 minutes today. Okay, with that said, I have 4 things and a quote that I want to share with you today that I hope will be helpful. The first one is a phrase that's said by a spiritual director that I know, and it's a phrase that comes back to me again and again because of how much I struggle with it, and that is, be gentle with yourself. This is a hard time politically. It's a hard time in our country. You know, not even politically. This is a difficult time for the governance of our country. And it's something that all of us have taken, most of us anyway, have taken for granted for most or all of our lives. And to see things being shaken up. I mean, since the last time we've done one of these check-ins, there has been an attempted assassination of a former president and a nominee. We've heard yet more stories about the nominee on the other side, questions about his age. I don't know, do we need to make a list? It doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum. Even the people we disagree, even the people you might disagree with most, this is a stressful time, and it's a lot. You know, we got into a conversation in the office here at the church the other day about it. And in trying to say a few words then, I realized what it felt like. I realized that I felt in a way that's similar to those first couple weeks of the pandemic. Do you remember that back in 2020? What was that? February, March? I don't know. Whenever the shutdowns began, there was so much news, and the way things normally work had been upended so much that for a couple weeks there, we were all just exhausted, not even from the massive intake of news that most of us were doing, but just from the magnitude of things that were going on, we were exhausted. And I realized that's kind of how it feels right now in our communal life as a country, our governance, our politics, whatever you want to call it. And so the first thing I want to say is, that's okay. It's hard. Be exhausted. Allow yourself to be exhausted, because what that is just a reflection of what's going on around us. Okay, so the second thing I wanted to share is something that my spiritual director tells me often, and it's a prayer that is important to many of us. Now, it's the Serenity Prayer. Now, many people associate it with Alcoholics Anonymous, and for good reason. They've helped to make it popular and famous. But the prayer was actually written by Reinhold Niebuhr, part of a larger prayer that you can look up on the internet and read if you want. And it did evolve a little bit as it was published over the years. But there is such deep wisdom in that prayer, and I think it applies now as much, if not more than ever. And so I want you to hear it, and I want you to think about it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, that last line's the real one, isn't it? You know, it's not so easy to accept the things that we can't change. There are forces at work in our nation and in our world, because there's political upheaval in many parts of the world right now and big changes that are happening. The whole order of things is kind of topsy-turvy at the moment. And there are so many parts of it that any of us as individuals cannot change. Even the people with the most influence in this world can't change them. And accepting that and allowing it to be is part of it. But another part of that serenity prayer is having the courage to change the things that we can. Now, I have a quote that I'm going to share at the end of this that I hope will be a good closer. But this is the part that it keys into, because there are some things that we can do, and in fact, the most important things that we can do may not be the ones that first jump out at you. Of course, the wisdom to know the difference between the things that we can't change and the things that we can, that's not so easy. Perhaps that's why this is a prayer, because it's only God that can grant us that wisdom. So, okay, that's the second thing I wanted to say. The third is this. I think the church plays a vital role right now on two different levels, probably more than that, to be honest with you. One of them is that the church offers us a safe haven. Now, we oftentimes have arguments in church, right? There is no church that ever goes a single day without there being some kind of conflict or argument. And if you stay around church very long, even a healthy church like ours, I guarantee you, sooner or later, somebody will say something that makes you mad. It might very well be me. It probably will. However, there's also a sense that the things of faith, the things that truly matter, the things that bring us together, such as Scripture, the stories of Jesus, the tradition that we are a part of, are things that have been around through many periods of turmoil, like the ones that we're experiencing now. You know, last week in this spot, this Wednesday check-in, I talked about fixed hour prayer, and I held up the prayer book that I've been using. And I think one of the things that's drawing me to it right now is the fact that it goes back so far. And technically, it goes back even before the time of Jesus into Judaism. It was developing in the desert and in several ways. It really started to pick up steam in the 300s and 400s, which means that the prayers that I've been saying these last few days are the prayers that helped people get through the fall of Rome. And every upheaval that's happened ever since. Now, I'm not saying that what's going on in our world right now is equivalent to the fall of Rome. That's a conversation for another time, perhaps down there. You know where I'm pointing. But what I am saying is that there's something about the things of faith that remind us that God is even bigger than even the biggest problems this world can throw at us. It's a reminder of it. So the church plays that role for us as a refuge. I say the church, I mean faith, that spirituality, that belief in God, our religion plays that role for us. I also think we play a stabilizing role for the community. You know, because the more we lean into those things, the more we remember who we are in God, the more we remember how God is bigger than all of it, well, that lets us go out and be a stabilizing force. It lets us be the peacemakers in our community. Okay, so what were the four things I was going to say? I've done three of them. One is be gentle with yourself. It's okay to be exhausted. With the serenity prayer, the church is a stabilizer. And then the last thing I want to say is that I really am a person of hope. I don't know what's going on in our world right now. I don't know what's going to become of our country. There are days when I am optimistic for the politics. There are days when I am less optimistic for the state of politics and where things will go on a policy and governance sort of level. But at the same time, bigger than any of that are the promises of God that have played out again and again and again. And I know that the deepest and biggest of any of those promises is Revelation chapter 21. I see it as part of my call as a pastor to just say Revelation 21 over and over and over again. And specifically, I mean the part where God says, "Behold, I am making all things new." You know, I've been studying a theologian lately because, you know, that's the kind of thing I do for fun, named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And part of what he did was right when Darwin was first writing about evolution, he took the theory of evolution and began to wonder where God was in the midst of it. And he referred to the slow work of God and how God is evolving all people towards that perfect end that we see in Scripture. And yes, there are setbacks. Yes, there are times when disasters happen, and none of us want to live through those times. But even those times don't change the fact that God has promised good for us, and that will be despite all else. There is always hope, and I'm still learning how to talk about it well, and I'm glad that you all are with me on that journey too. Okay. So, those are the 4 things I wanted to say, and now I'm going to leave you with a quote. If you've been around a while, you've probably heard me quote David Brooks before. He's one of my favorite thinkers. Back in the day, back before the Republican Party became what it is now, I remember thinking that I really wanted somebody who was on the right side of things, who could speak well and who could help me understand that different point of view. And he actually now considers himself much closer to the middle with the way things have changed. However, he gave me that, and he did a speech a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, at the Aspen Ideas Festival, where lots of lofty ideas are put out. And towards the end of one of his talks, he said this. Now, it's not the most eloquent of quotes, so hang on. You're going to have to listen closely. But I think he really nails it here. He said this: "Even in our brutal times, when a lot of our political opponents are brutal and monstrous and frankly authoritarian." Now, he wasn't just talking about Trump. He was talking globally at this point. "Even in our brutal times, when a lot of our political opponents are brutal and monstrous and frankly authoritarian, that, paradoxically, the way to rebut them is to be more human, to touch the things that we really do need to salve our souls and to emphasize the deepest parts of our nature." Now, if any of you want, I'm happy to point you towards that video. Just reply to the email that you got this video in, or Facebook or wherever, and I'm happy to send you the link to watch that whole talk if you want. It's worth listening to. But can I say it in my own words? That no matter what happens in the world, there's something about being kind. There's something about embracing your own humanity so that you do not fall into the trap of being less human. That somehow is the antidote to it all. And it's something that we each can do. That for all the things in the world that we can't change, for all the things in the world that we might wish were different, that simply being more human ourselves, and I would say leaning into the things of God, because it's in Jesus we see what's most human. It's leaning into that is the best antidote to it all. And that is something that we can always do, no matter what. Okay. I'm still thinking about all this. I'm still wrestling with it. But I know that many of you have been wrestling with it too, and I hope this helps. I'd love to know what you're thinking too. Please reply and let me know, or tell me in whatever way. And in the meantime, we'll keep on the journey. And as always, I'm glad we're on it together. I'll see you soon, church. Esther this Sunday, a story of political violence. It should be a good sermon, shouldn't it? I'll see you soon, church.